Hello all, and welcome back to the YouTube channel All Day Chess TV. Today, I'm here to share some big news, and then we'll go into some Mate in 2 puzzles. First, the big news is we're almost at 100 subscribers. Can you believe it? It went by really fast. We're in the final home stretch, guys, so make sure to subscribe and hit the like button and post a comment down below. With that in mind, let's go into puzzle number 1. In this Mate in 2 puzzle, we can see that this black king is in the very edge of the board. It's on h2, it's on the very last file, and the second to last rank. So we know this black king doesn't have many squares, and we can see that it can't come to h1 because of the queen, it can't come to g1 because of the queen, it can't come to g2 because of the queen, it can't come to h3 because of the knight, so we need to give a check and make sure this square is guarded. Though, guys, we're actually going to move our queen here. Our queen is in a pretty good spot. We're going to move it to an even better spot to try and get the checkmate. So try and pause the video and try and figure out where we can move the queen to bring home the win. If we move our queen to g2, the king can take, and the king and knight cannot mate the lone king, so this is a draw. If we bring our queen, to f4, then if the king comes to g2, we're still completely winning, but this is not a mate in 2. So the answer is actually queen to h3, check, and after king g1, we bring our knight in to f3, and it's a wonderful checkmate. This knight gives a check and guards this h2 square, where the queen takes care of all the rest. Though, be sure not to count out the king guarding this important f2 square, so the king can't run away. In the second Mate in 2 puzzle, we can see that this king is not in the very edge of the board, where our king is somewhat at the edge of the board. So guys, this doesn't mean anything because we still have our Mate in 2. We have a bishop and a queen and a king versus their lone king. So we have to use all our pieces and bring everyone to the party to try and find the checkmate. Go ahead and pause the video right now and try and figure out the solution for yourself. I'll give you a hint. The very first move is a bishop move. The move is actually bishop b3 check, which is really nice because the king can't take because of this king and the queen. Can't come to c3 because of the queen. Can't come to d3 because of the queen. Can't come to b2 because of the king. And it can't come to d2 because of the queen. And it can't go back to c1 because of the queen. And so the only squares it can go to are b1. And that's it, because the bishop also crosses d1 square. So the king will move back here, and then we can finish it off with queen e1. Remember in the last video, we had our king and queen checkmate, except the king was on this square, so it was able to guard everything. In this position, the bishop is here, so it also works the same way, and the king guards this very important square. Because if the bishop was just here, and the king was somewhere off, let's say g7 or something, it wouldn't be checkmate, because then the king could come up. But since this king is here and guards the square, the king can't come up, so that's a checkmate. This puzzle is like some previous puzzles before, so we have to use that same idea to try and get the checkmate here. I think you guys were watching the previous videos too, so go ahead and watch them if you haven't already. But using those ideas, let's see if we can find a checkmate. So if we simply just take this pawn, this is not checkmate, as the king can come either to e1 or g1. If, let's say, we bring our queen here, maybe bring it closer to the king, e1 or g1 still. So what if we try and stop it from going to e1 or g1? Well, we can do that by playing here or something, and then it can only go to g1, because that's not our mate in 2. To get our mate in 2, we need to be able to block the king, right? Restrict it, and then find the checkmate. So the answer is actually queen a2. Okay, it can go to e1 or g1, but now the king is here and I can support the queen wherever it goes. Like if it goes to g1, we have checkmate. If it goes to e1, we also have checkmate. So either way, we have checkmate. So guys, this is a very nice puzzle, and let's move on to the next one. In this position, it might look a little bit confusing, but let me point this out right away. So this black king has traveled from e8 somehow, and he's all the way come down to d2, right? So this means this pawn is not going this way. it's actually going this way, which may look a bit confusing. But remember that, because it's going to be very useful in the puzzle. So guys, try and figure this out. This knight here is very powerful. It guards the c2 square and protects this d3 square. Notice how I said protects. So that means something has to go there on the d3 square, right? And that's the queen. This is the first step, queen d3. And now after king c1, we actually can play queen c2, which is the checkmate. You might think, oh, but how can the king come to c1? Isn't it a check? No, remember, this pawn is going this way. So this is not a check. Right, guys? So it's queen c2, which is the correct answer. This puzzle is a little bit different from the rest. We have a rook and a bishop versus a pawn. Though sometimes our very first move has been a check, right? A check and then a checkmate. This time, it's not the case. This move is trying to make the black king very limited, like the amount of squares it needs to go to, very restricted, limited, right? So we need to try and find a move which will restrict the black king and which will help us give a checkmate on the next move. This one's a bit tricky, so let me show you why it works. Our first move is bishop to g4. This is a wonderful move, right? And let's say after the normal king b1, we have rook d1, which is checkmate. And after f5, we also have this rook d1. But you might say, oh, can't I take the bishop? I mean, you can, but you can't, if you know what I mean. If it was your turn and you weren't in check, you could take the bishop. But unfortunately, you are in check, so you have to move something, but you can't since it's checkmate. And this bishop guards this rook. So even though this bishop is under attack, it's a checkmate since this rook attacks the king. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just game. Okay, now moving on to the next puzzle. This puzzle will definitely get you thinking. Since this is the last one in this video, try and think on how you can get it. And I want you guys, the audience, to try and solve this by yourself. So go ahead and solve this and post your answer in the comment section below. I'll go over the puzzle, but first go ahead and comment. So guys, here we have a very interesting puzzle. We have the rook on g5, which is pinned. This pawn on h5, which wants to become a queen, but sadly is blocked by its own king and the enemy king. But we have this very powerful queen and this pretty nice placed king. So we have to try and find a mate in 2. Let's see. What about if we bring a check? That should always be good, right? Oh, look, he can't even come here. He can't come here. Yeah, but unfortunately there's rook here. And, yep, it's not an immediate mate. So let's see. What about check here? And then after rook here, what about check here? Yeah, but no, it's not checkmate. Okay, let's see. What about check here? Okay, this looks promising. Because now after rook here, our king also takes over this square. So this is checkmate. Right? So, and then, let's see. What if they play here? Then what if we play queen e4? This is a checkmate. Great job. Wow, this is cool, so cool. This queen takes over all these squares. The king takes over these squares. The queen also takes over all these squares. And it's a check. What a puzzle to finish it off. Thanks all for watching and see you in the next video.